Now, let's just get to the conference. I have the pleasure of introducing our first speaker of the day, Leslie Molen. Yes. Leslie has been with the Department of Health and Human Services for a little over a year. She is a program manager for the Emergency Food Assistance Program, TEFAP, the Commodity Supplemental Foods Program, and SNAP Outreach Program for the state of Iowa. Prior to this role, Leslie was the Assistant Director of Programs at Catholic Charities, Diocese of Des Moines, with direct oversight of the Emergency Family Shelter and the food pantries. So many of you may have known Leslie in her prior role. We sure did. Leslie was a member of Catholic Charities USA Food and Nutrition Steering Committee from 2019 through 2022. She has her master's in public administration from Drake University. Please welcome Leslie Molen.
Good morning. Thank you for being here today and listening to all about TEFAP as I muddle through this. So it's great to see so many familiar faces, to connect with people I haven't seen in over a year, and some people I haven't seen in ages. So this is kind of fun. If I can figure out how to work the clicker, that'll be the other thing, right? All right. Today we're going to go over what is TEFAP, federal, state, and local agency roles with TEFAP, food distribution, and agency responsibilities. The Emergency Food Assistance Program, TEFAP, is provided through the United States Department of Agriculture, Food and Nutrition Services. This program supplements the diets of eligible recipients by providing food at no cost to our participants. USDA Food and Nutrition Services provides general oversight, regulation, and administration of TEFAP, and the state agency administers the program at the state level. In Iowa, we contract with 6 food banks. As you can see, Food Bank of Iowa is our largest food bank, covering 55 counties. The food banks partner with eligible partner agencies to distribute TEFAP food directly to clients in need in all 99 counties across the state. In order to be an eligible recipient agency or partner agency, you must be public, private, tax-exempt organization, but not a penal institution. Distribute food either as prepared meals or for household consumption exclusively to needy persons, and then have a written agreement with the food bank. Food distribution exclusively to needy persons through prepared meals. So this is often you're preparing a meal and you have a meal site. Though through COVID, we saw flexibilities around that where people were offering meals to go in those organizations. It's assumed that the clients meet eligibility requirements and the agency assumes all the responsibility. And then household consumption is your food pantry distribution where people are taking their food to another location to prepare. And there are eligibility requirements for that. Prepared meals, there's no income guidelines for recipients. Agency is not required to maintain records for the names of the clients or the people that they're serving, and meal sites may not use the TEFAP form. Agency must demonstrate that they serve predominantly needy population, 51%, and then the population is at or below 185% of the federal poverty level. Household consumption is your food pantry distribution. So, we use a self-declared eligibility form, which is our super fun, exciting TEFAP form that you guys all love. I know it. Income has to be at or below 185% of poverty, or the participant can receive SNAP or free or reduced lunch. Participant must live in the state of Iowa, and then they need to let us know how many people are in their household. This is our current TEFAP form for this current state fiscal year. When you're filling out the form or having the client fill out the form, it's really important that they know what it is that they're signing. I've done a couple of site reviews where it is people come in and you're like, sign this. But we still want the participants to know what it is that they are signing. You only want the participant to enter in the required fields, so their name, number, persons in their household, and their physical address. If they're homeless, they can just write homeless in that category. Based on the number of people in their household, they're going to look and see if they're at or below that 185% of federal poverty. If they don't meet the income guideline, but they receive SNAP or free or reduced lunch, they just check that box. And then the paragraphs below, they're attesting to that the information that they're providing is true. They only need to let us know if their income changes that puts them above the 185% poverty level. They would no longer be eligible for TEFAP. They need to report that. And that they understand that making a false claim, there could be penalty, state or federal, with state or federal criminal charges being pressed. And then the USDA non-discrimination statement is available to them on the back of the form, and they can ask for a copy of that at any time. They only sign this form one time per year, and that's the state fiscal year. So in essence, if a client comes in on June 30th, they would sign the current form. July 1st is the new state fiscal year. They have to sign the form the next day. Income guidelines usually change every year, so we want to make sure that we're giving clients the right income information to make sure that we're not inadvertently telling someone they don't qualify when they actually do. For TEFAP, you have to document subsequent pantry visits, and agencies can do this kind of in the best way possible for them. The back of the form does have a couple lines, and that's just for agencies that are pen and paper. They have a place to document those subsequent visits. If you are a pen and paper agency and you run out of lines, go ahead, you can use a piece of paper and just keep it with that original TEFAP form. With the TEFAP form, any electronic use of the form must be approved by the department for each individual site prior to use. So if you have, you want to implement the TEFAP form in a digital manner, contact your contact at the food bank and they will schedule a meeting so we can go over that. Do not alter the form in any way. This is an official state document. And make sure you have both sides available to the applicant. Again, participant must be a resident of Iowa. So if you have a client come in and they tell you they're from Nebraska passing through Iowa on their way to Illinois and they need food, they would not be eligible for TEFAP. They are not an Iowa resident. If someone comes in and they just moved to Iowa, you know, the day before, they're eligible under that residency piece. And then no additional information is needed for participants to receive USDA food. If a site does have additional intake where they need additional information from the participant, they need to make it clear to the participant that the additional information they're collecting will have no bearing on their ability to receive TEFAP foods. The TEFAP form should be presented first before any other information is collected or verification is being asked. So if you require ID, verification of income, or verification of address. You must allow proxy distribution. The department does not have an official proxy form, so even a note from the participant for a proxy is sufficient. There must be a TEFAP form on file for that participant before they can receive TEFAP. If you don't have a form on file, you can send the TEFAP form with the person. Just make sure you attach your pantry information to the form so the participant knows where to return that TEFAP form. We get a lot of forms that are turned into the local HHS office because the participant doesn't know where to return the form, or they mail it to the address on the form, which is the Assistant Secretary of Civil Rights, and those forms all do eventually make it back to my desk. So, and I have no idea what to do with them. I can maybe kind of guess what food bank they're with based on their address, but that doesn't necessarily mean they went to the food bank, a pantry within that food bank. Food ordering procedures, inventory controls. Normal food should not be reduced because of the receipt of USDA foods. Do not order a surplus of USDA foods. You should only have 6 months of inventory on hand for USDA TEFAP foods. USDA food should be provided to participants while they're still in optimal condition. And then when you're rotating your stock, make sure you're using the first in, first out concept or first expired, first out concept. Food storage should be stored within required temperature range. Dry food between 50 and 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Food should never be below 32 degrees, rarely above 70 degrees. Frozen food, -10 to 0 degrees Fahrenheit. Foods can be below -10. And then refrigerated between 35 and 40 degrees, and they should never be outside of this range. So, and these ranges are when you're not in the unit. When you're in and out of the unit, your ranges are going to change a little bit. Your food storage areas and shelving should be clean and free of pests. Food should be stored at least 4 inches away from the wall, 6 inches off the floor, and 2 feet away from the ceiling. A pest control system needs to be in place. USDA foods should be stored separately from non-USDA foods. USDA foods should be labeled as USDA foods. Non-food items should be stored separately from food items. Do not place non-food items on shelving with or above food items. And then chemicals should never be stored with food, including like your cleaning chemicals. Food dating, USDA foods cannot be distributed past the best of use by date. You are to notify your regional partnership coordinator at the food bank if you have food that's USDA food that's going to expire within 30 days. We all have the common goal to provide quality food to eligible participants. To meet this goal, we must ensure product is distributed timely. So kind of like Michelle said, we're not a museum. We're all in the business of distributing food, not storing food. So we really want to make sure that we only have enough food that we can rotate and distribute within a timely manner. Food loss. Failure to distribute food before the best of use by date is considered a food loss. If you have USDA food past the best of use by date, you must notify the food bank and provide the following information to the food bank. This just makes things a little easier on my end so we can resolve this issue as quickly as possible. So include pictures of the product and their best of use by date, the number of cases of the product, if you have a partial product, the number of individual items. Do not dispose of the product or give the product away. Your regional partnership coordinator or someone at the food bank will let you know what next steps are with those food items. Product no longer fit for human consumption is also considered a USDA TEFAP food loss. If you have food that is no longer fit for human consumption, you must notify the food bank. Provide pictures of the product. If you know when you receive the product, that's also helpful information so they don't have to kind of dig through their system to get that information. You can provide that to them. The cause of the food loss, again, number of cases, partial product. Provide temperature logs for the past 30 days. So if you had a cold storage unit go out, we just want to know, was that slowly going out, or did you come in one day and it was completely done? So those temperature logs are really helpful with that. And you may need to submit additional information. And provide as much information on that food loss as you can. So let's say you have oranges have been an issue lately. USDA oranges, so let's say you have some oranges, you open up, they're not in great condition, providing pictures of that documentation and then letting us know when you receive the oranges. Maybe you received them a week ago, they should have lasted longer in your cold storage. That's all helpful information to know. And then if you also have additional produce in your refrigerator, we want to make sure we get resolved on that, ideally the same day if possible. Had an issue because sometimes things don't work the way we want it. Had an issue where it took over a week to get permission from F&S to dispose of oranges. So, and that was just a lot of anxiety around that, as you have product that is not in the great condition and you're trying to get rid of that. Again, do not dispose of the product or distribute the product to anyone until you have heard from your regional partnership coordinator. If you haven't heard in a while, feel free to ask them, reach out to them and ask them what the status is. That's okay, and they'll ask me, and that's okay also, as we try to get permission to dispose of that product. If someone has come to you and said that they consumed a USDA item and it made them sick, or they found something in it, please notify your regional partnership coordinator about that. Try to get as much information from your participant so they can send that on up to us. That is something that I will pass on to F&S, just so they are aware that there was an issue. Maybe it's a one-off issue. Maybe other states are reporting the same issue with that product, so they can do what they do with that. Agencies may not sell, exchange, use for personal gain, or use in any fraudulent manner any USDA TEFAP foods. Ask participants for donations and or charge them a fee. Repackage or repurpose USDA foods. Redistribute foods to other agencies without approval from the food bank. Distribute USDA foods beyond the best of use by date. Dispose of USDA foods without permission. Provide USDA foods for home consumption to recipients who do not meet TEFAP requirements. Civil rights. Agencies must complete the civil rights training annually. If your organization does some form of an annual civil rights training, you still need to complete the TEFAP USDA civil rights training. Make sure you have your "And Justice for All" poster placed in a predominant place, and you only need one poster depending on the layout of your organization. The non-discrimination statement must be posted on all public-facing information about your program. So if you have a website, the USDA statement needs to be on your website. If you are an agency that has multiple programs, it needs to be on the program about your food distribution. If you are a standalone agency where all you do is food distribution, it should be on your home page. For social media sites, make sure you're checking that social media site based on how your clients are viewing that. Based on the social media site, you may view the site differently if you're logged in from a mobile app or a desktop app, if you have an account with that site, or if you're just pulled up the site from the internet. So all of that's important to make sure the information is getting to all persons who are viewing your organization. You can have, for digital platforms, you can have a link to the full statement, the USDA statement, and you can hyperlink that. If you don't know how to do that, reach out to your contact at the food bank, and I can send them the information to pass on to you. You need to distribute USDA foods to households in the same amount as the recipient who provided the additional required information. This is just a screenshot for the USDA non-discrimination statement. If you hyperlink, make sure that this is the statement that you're hyperlinked to. There's a lot of different USDA statements or civil rights statements depending on the program. This is the full statement, the full version of the USDA non-discrimination statement. If you're going to post the statement, you can either do the full statement or the short statement. You can't pick and choose have a medium middle ground in that. All information on the the full statement is important. This is the short statement. If you're doing print material and there's no room to put the full statement, you can use the short statement. And then even on your hours of operation that you have posted on your building, you should have the short statement listed below those hours of operation, which was the new thing I learned in this job. So super exciting. This is the "And Justice for All" poster. If you have a green poster with the Statue of Liberty on it, that is super outdated. Contact your contact at the food bank to get a new poster. Once you receive the new poster, you can throw away the green poster with the Statue of Liberty on it. If you do other food programs within your organization, you may have a red poster and a blue poster. You still need to have the green poster. Religious and faith-based organizations, you need to post your written notice of beneficiary rights in a prominent place. We suggest next to your and Justice for All poster. You need to have the beneficiary referral request form on hand, just in case you ever need to use it, and you may find that you may never have to use that. If a participant does not want to use your organization because of your religion, because you're religious or you're affiliate, you can direct them to another pantry location, but you have to ensure the participant agrees with that alternate provider. Depending on the situation, you may need to reach out to your contact at the food bank and have them work with the participant on an alternate provider. And you can retain these forms from the food bank. Agency requirements, hours of operation need to be posted. If you change your hours of operation, you need to update that wherever you have that. And make sure you're notifying the food bank, your contact at the food bank, that you've changed your hours of operation. Non-discrimination statement is posted on all public-facing information. Do not ask recipients for donations or charge them a fee. This includes having a donation or tip jar present. Ensure materials provided to clients do not include a donation request. Retain files for 3 years plus the current year for all TEFAP documentation. So this is going to be your TEFAP eligibility form, your civil rights training logs. If you've had a food loss, you're going to want to retain that information. Or if you've had a site review, you're going to want to, HHS site review, you're going to want to retain any information you receive from that. Site reviews. Site reviews can be completed by HHS or your food bank. The food bank usually reviews agencies every other year. Each review will encompass eligibility determinations, food ordering procedures, storage and warehousing practices, inventory controls, distribution of commodities, and then if you're serving prepared meals to needy persons, reporting and record keeping, and civil rights. The site report will be issued to the food bank, and the food bank will then send you information about that report. If there are any deficiencies, you will have to do a corrective action, and there is a short turnaround time with that corrective action to provide to the food bank. Food bank will send me the corrective action. If there's still deficiencies or the corrective action doesn't eliminate the deficiencies, you will be required to kind of shore that up a little bit, and that will have a really quick turnaround time on that. All right, any questions? Yes. Yeah, I think the food bank will send it out, so you'll be able to.
It's a lot, and my neighbor's not.
That's okay. Yes.
Free and reduced lunches. We live in a school district where everybody qualifies for free and reduced lunch up to 6th or 7th grade.
And then any of those families that come in could mark, just check box that, and then they're categorically eligible. Yep. Yes.
It's your forms in different languages of English.
Yes. I feel like we maybe have 10 different languages available. So if there's a language you're needing, reach out to your regional partnership coordinator. Any other questions?
Is there new civil rights training application?
Yep, so I'm currently working on that, so I will get that out to the food bank before July 1st, and then they'll send that out. Yes.
To contact folks to remind them that this, the boxes are coming in, don't read them, pick them up. Is there any way that we can maybe I have to put this information out. And of course, with seniors, they don't really use Facebook or email or anything like that.
Are you doing senior boxes with Polk County?
Soon.
Oh, okay. We cannot add that additional information on the TEFAP form just because we have such, just with our guidelines for TEFAP, we want to make it as at least invasive as possible. So that would be something where you would have additional intake questions to gather that information for the participants.
The second question is on retained records. Does it have to be hard copy or can it be digital copy?
Do you have a system, a digital TEFAP form, or you're just scanning them up, scanning them? Oh, so you'll need to talk to your contact at the food bank, and we'll have to discuss that because we'll want to make sure that you're storing them in an appropriate manner, that it doesn't violate any confidentiality pieces. Any other questions? Yeah.
Can you talk real quick the correct way to do deliveries with TEFAP food?
Oh, the correct way to do deliveries? I don't know if there is a correct way, Neil. I don't know if that's the right answer. So you're kind of thinking of an agency that just, instead of having clients come in, they
Yeah, your home delivery would be the correct way to go about that.
I don't know the answer to that. So it hasn't come up yet in my year that I've been in this position. So I will look into that and let Neil know, because I don't want to say anything and then I have to take it back because I misspoke. So, yes.
To add to your information about the Justice for All poster, if anybody in the room realizes that you have an outdated Justice for All poster, if you have some here that are the current poster that we can send with you today, just give it through our PC.
Yes.
Second question, the residents of Iowa, we live in an area where we have a lot of migrant workers come in for 2 to 4 weeks in July. And we can give them food, but it shouldn't be USDA food. Is that correct?
So I'm going to let you interpret that. I would say if they're here for an extended period of time or a period of time and they're here working, that at that moment they are a resident of the state of Iowa. Our residency language isn't like you have to be an official state resident. It is you moved here yesterday, you moved here this morning, you're going to be staying here, so we consider that a resident. So, and I think the same kind of looks like working with college students who are food insecure and need TEFAP. You know, they may be out of state, they may not be official resident, but they're staying in Iowa for a period of time. So they would then be eligible to receive TEFAP foods. Yes.
Might be helpful if you could repeat the question
Okay.
so we can all hear it, because many of us are struggling to hear
The questions.
questions, the answer's great.
But you need the context, right? Yeah. Okay.
What did you say?
I'm going to repeat the question so you know the answer if there's any other questions. Yes.
Has civil rights training been revised or updated or anything?
Question was, is civil rights training being revised or updated? It'll be slightly revised or updated. Just as I learn information, so every year I have to go through a 2-hour civil rights training. So as I learn more information or we have more clarification, I'll make sure that that information is in your civil rights training, so we all have the same information. Yes.
We have families with 15 or 16 people in them, and if we have formal history and have questions in the past on, do we those number make no matter how many they have, or what is it?
So the question is, how do you assist larger families who have more than 8 people in their household, because the TEFAP form only goes to 8. In the very far column, it's there's information for how much to add for each additional person in the household. So a little math on your end. Any other questions? Yes.
Just inside everyone's folder, you may have noticed that there is a food keeper guide and a guideline of how long you can safely distribute food. TEFAP is the exception to that rule. So
I know that food dating is a huge issue across the United States. There's really just not a whole lot of consistency. But can you talk about why USDA food has to be distributed by the best if used by date, even if a can of green beans from Del Monte we can keep for 6 months or a year, but
Yeah.
if it's USDA, we can't.
So USDA food dating, why it is different with TEFAP food versus other food. And this causes a lot of confusion because if you go out to a USDA website, they actually have information that says your food product is good for past the date on it, except for infant formula and baby food. Those are the only two food items that you have to abide by the dates on them. So the reason TEFAP has different standards is because the federal government is purchasing that food for us. And so you're receiving it in the same manner any other big place, Walmart, any place like that is receiving that. The food isn't being stored in a warehouse before we can get it. So when we place orders for TEFAP, after we place the order and we select when we want to receive that order, USDA goes out and they source that product for us for that delivery timeline. So the food on it is it's hard to say it's fresh when it's canned good, shelf stable, but we're getting it right away. And so we want to make sure that the participant has the best date on that, extended shelf life on it that we can. So worst case scenario, from the time a food bank receives the order, from the time you distribute it, it should be less than a year. And that's if the food bank has that product for 6 months and you pick it up at the end of their 6-month timeline and you have 6 months. So again, we're in this, we're in the business of distributing food. We don't want to be hoarding food. We don't want to be keeping food on our shelves. If you have a new food item and you're not sure if your clients will like it, order a little bit, and then hopefully it's still on the inventory for the next time. Also, when your regional partnership coordinators ask you about the food, USDA food, what do you like, what do you not like, what do your clients like in particular, it's really important to pass that information on to them so they can do their best to try to source food that is wanted within the state. Yes?
Is there a way, maybe I've missed it, to see what the best by date is on the USDA food?
Is there a way to see what the best of use by date is on USDA foods when you order it? I don't know. Our expiration dates aren't on the food? No, on the inventory. So a good rule of thumb is if you're ordering USDA food, if you get it out the door within 6 months, you're not going to have anything to worry about. The majority of time, the food is not short dated. We may receive a bonus item, which is an item that couldn't sell in the retail market, and so then we get a donation. That may have a short date on it, and then that would be kind of up to the food bank if they're going to let you know if that's a shorter date than that 6 month. Like if you need to distribute it before the 6 months is up.
So when it's listed as a bonus item, we know it's less than 6.
Not necessarily. There's just sometimes that might have a short date on it, but not all the time. It makes it really confusing, doesn't it? Yes. Any other questions?
We have we have a relatively small food pantry in a town of about 2,800 people. Right now we have 74 individuals or households registered for food, but we only average a little over 20 requests per month. That makes it a little difficult to know how much food to buy. I don't know how strict we have to be with that, but as far as the dates to watch, and also on the TEFAP form, it shows the individual when they're registering the size of the family with the income for that household. Are they now required to verify their income?
All right. So 2 questions. The first one is how do you manage the ebb and flow of clients distribution with storage. So just kind of keep in mind whatever your client distribution is, did not have more than 6 months of product on hand. So whatever that 6 month of product is on hand for the volume you're serving, there's always going to be kind of high distribution times, which we usually see in November. So you may have more storage, more product on hand for those high volume times. And you know your pantry best. So if it's something, you have a case left over at the end of 6 months and it still has a good date on it, you don't need to call your regional partnership coordinator and be like, oh, I have 3 cases left over and it's been here for 6 months. Ideally, you're going to distribute those relatively soon. But when we do site visits, we don't want to see an additional 6 months worth of product sitting within your inventory that you're unable to distribute. That's food that wasn't able to go out to someone who's in need and within a different community, a different pantry. The second question was, do participants need to verify their income based on their household size? And no, they self-attest to that, their income based on their household size. Any other questions? Yes, Becky.
Some USDA food has a code on it instead of a specified date. Is there a way that we can get that information on how to read the codes?
Question was about Julian dating on USDA foods and how to get information on how to read that code. I can send out a Julian calendar to the Food Bank of Iowa, and they can send that out to the rest of you. Julian coding gets my limited information I have on it. It gets a little, it looks different based on the year. So the first part of the code is going to kind of be the same for the month and the day. It's just when you factor the year in there, then it looks a little different. Because USDA puts out bids for the product, USDA cannot control Julian dating with manufacturers who use this method. And again, with the Julian dating, if you practice that 6 month time frame, you should be in the clear and have no issues. Any other questions? Yes.
When we're getting USDA items in that are destroyed in shipping or whatever, and they're coming to us, we can back those up and contact you about that?
So contact the food bank and let them know what's damaged and then kind of the extent of the damage, and they'll pass that on to me. So if it kind of depends on what the damage is. Is the product still available to use? Is it not available for use? But just talk to them about it and they'll let me know. Sometimes, and that's, yeah, hold on to it, don't throw it away, let them know. If it's one can, but every case you open, it's the same can, you're noticing the same thing, let the food bank know because it's probably a vendor quality issue, and we want to report that to FNS so they know kind of what's going on. All of those vendors do have contracts that they have to follow for the quality of food, so we want to make sure that they're following their agreement. For Bruce, yes, but only for Bruce. So you can call him, he'll come over and pick up all the beans. And some of that is with beans, you may have cut that bag when you opened it. It may have just torn within the tape. So no, I think the food bank would appreciate not having those one-off little conversations. So, any other questions? All right. One thing I'll end on, if you have a client return USDA product to you, it is no longer USDA product. So they received it, they don't want it, they're giving it back. It is no longer USDA product. You can distribute that food how you would any other way you distribute your food. So, yeah.
Do you feel like USDA food is going to become more plentiful in the near future?
Oh, I have, the question is USDA food going to become more plentiful in the near future? And I have really sad news for you, Tammy.
I know the answer, but
Yeah.
I'm hoping that something changed overnight.
Yeah, no, nothing changed overnight. All the additional food we received during COVID with USDA was pandemic relief. pandemic is ending, and so all of those, the monies for the food will be done. So if you've been in the food pantry, food distribution business for a long time, you're going to look at levels of USDA food pre-trade mitigation. So we're going back several years. If you have joined your food pantry during COVID, it's going to be very sad for you, just the drop in the level of food. So, yeah, I don't know how else to explain it if you haven't been, if you weren't in a pantry prior to trade mitigations. So, any other questions? All right, well, thank you for letting me speak with you this morning.